August 26, 1346. In a muddy field near Crecy, France, 9,000 weary English soldiers stood face to face with 30,000 of Europe's finest knights. The French held every advantage: superior numbers, heavy cavalry, and the proudest nobility in Christendom. They were so sure of victory that nobles argued among themselves over who would get the honor of killing the English king. 4 hours later, 1,500 French nobles were dead, including princes, dukes, and even kings. The English lost just 40 men. 500 years of knightly dominance, the era of steel, chivalry, and the mounted charge, ended in one single afternoon, brought down by peasants with bows and strings. This was the Battle of Crécy, where medieval warfare drowned in mud, and the myth of noble superiority died with it. By the end of the story, you'll see how a weapon worth 10 shillings defeated armor worth 1,000 pounds, why French knights killed their own mercenaries, and how one blind king met death more nobly than any sighted man. Edward III of England had landed in Normandy with 15,000 men, claiming the French throne through his mother's bloodline. His campaign burned across northern France, a brutal chevauchée, a raid meant to humiliate the French crown and prove King Philip VI could not protect his people. Philip assembled one of the largest armies Europe had ever seen, 30 to 35,000 men, including 12,000 heavy cavalry. This wasn't just a royal army. It was a parade of Europe's elite. Princes, dukes, counts, even foreign kings joined the cause. It looked like a medieval Avengers: shining armor, plumes, and pride. A fully armored knight on a war horse weighed nearly a ton. They were bred for war since childhood, their armor worth more than a peasant village could earn in decades. For centuries, heavy cavalry had decided Europe's battles. Infantry existed to be trampled, and archers were seen as mere distractions. Edward III knew he was outnumbered and exhausted, but he held a weapon France underestimated: 5,000 Welsh and English longbowmen. Most were commoners or criminals who'd trained since boyhood. English law required every man to practice archery every Sunday after church. The longbow was simple, a 6-foot staff of yew wood, but in skilled hands it was lethal. These archers could loose 12 arrows a minute, each accurate at 250 yards. That's 2.5 football fields away. The draw weight, often 150 to 180 pounds, was so intense that their bones literally reshaped over time. Archaeologists can still identify longbowmen by their curved spines and enlarged shoulders. Edward placed his men on a slope, forcing the French to charge uphill. He arranged the archers in a V shape so their arrows would cross-fire over the killing field. Then he gave a shocking order. His knights were to dismount and fight on foot. It was unthinkable. For centuries, noblemen had fought only on horseback. But Edward understood something the French did not. The age of the mounted knight was ending. Slowly, armored nobles stepped into the mud beside peasants with bows. That night, the English camp was calm and ready. Archers waxed their strings to keep them dry. Stakes were hammered into the earth, and ditches dug by torchlight. Meanwhile, the French stumbled in, hungry and disorganized. Everything pointed to discipline versus arrogance. And when dawn came, fate sided with the prepared. The morning of August 26 broke gray and wet. The French vanguard marched through villages still burning from Edward's raids. To them, this was humiliation that demanded revenge. King Philip VI ordered a rest before battle, but French nobles didn't wait. They saw the English atop the hill and smelled glory. The king's authority vanished in the thunder of hooves. First came the Genoese crossbowmen, about 5,000 mercenaries, but their shields, called pavises, were left behind with the baggage train. And a brief rainstorm had soaked their bowstrings, making their weapons weak and sluggish. The English had unstrung theirs and kept them dry. When the Genoese finally fired, Their bolts fell short. Then came the English reply. 5,000 longbows unleashed at once. Witnesses said it sounded like thunder. The sky darkened with arrows. In a single minute, more than 60,000 arrows rained down. The Genoese had no cover, no time to reload. Their formation disintegrated under the storm. They turned and ran for their lives. And that's when the unthinkable happened. French nobles, enraged at their retreat, charged straight into their own crossbowmen, slaughtering them for cowardice. The battlefield became chaos, a storm of arrows, steel, and friendly fire. Then came the French cavalry charge. 12,000 armored knights galloping uphill through mud and corpses. Longbowmen aimed for the horses, through eyes, mouths, and joints. A wounded war horse weighing 1,500 pounds became a crashing wall of metal and flesh. The momentum of the charge collapsed. Arrows clattered off armor like hammers, cracking ribs, denting helms, piercing joints and visors at close range. The French came in wave after wave, 16 charges in total. Each new wave climbed over the dead of the last. The English archers ran out of arrows more than once. Each time they sprinted into the killing field, pulled arrows from the fallen, and fired them back into the next charge. In the midst of this horror rode King John of Bohemia, blind for years. When told the battle was lost, he said, "The King of Bohemia does not flee from battle. He ordered his men to tie their horses' reins to his, so they could lead him into the fray. He rode blind into death, swinging his sword at sounds and shadows. When found, his body was still tied to his fallen knights, his sword in hand, his eyes open. Edward's son, the Black Prince, was so moved by the act that he took the Bohemian king's emblem, 3 ostrich feathers with the motto, Ich dien, I serve, a symbol still used by the Prince of Wales today. By sunset, the French had charged 16 times. Each assault was less organized, more desperate. Even King Philip VI joined the final attack. His horse was shot from under him, and an arrow pierced his jaw. He barely escaped alive. When dawn rose on August 27, the scale of the slaughter was beyond belief. The flower of French nobility lay in the mud. Counts, dukes, princes, 1,500 dead. The English, barely 40 losses. For 5 centuries, nobility had been synonymous with superiority. At Crecy, that illusion shattered. Common archers had slaughtered kings. The social order of medieval Europe trembled. If a peasant could kill a prince, what did noble blood even mean? If skill and technology mattered more than lineage, the entire idea of divine right collapsed. The battlefield stank for weeks. Crows grew so fat on noble flesh that they could barely fly. Wolves and peasants picked through the corpses, taking jewelry and gold-laced armor. The English moved on toward Calais, leaving behind a field of shattered pride and broken steel. Locals later called it the Field of the Cloth of Gold, for the richness of the armor left behind. For generations, farmers unearthed bones and rusted helmets from their fields. France reeled in shock. Entire provinces lost their lords in a single day. The French army had to rebuild from scratch, copying English tactics, hiring archers, and abandoning the glory of cavalry charges. Crecy marked the dawn of modern warfare. It proved that discipline, preparation, and range power were stronger than blind courage. It killed the romance of the charge and replaced it with the cold logic of firepower. 10 years later at Poitiers, the French repeated their mistakes and lost again. It would take nearly a century for them to truly adapt. But the lesson was eternal. Courage cannot defeat strategy, nobility cannot stop arrows, and the age of the knight was over.